Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Arya Whitner, and this is your NXT Takeover Chicago audio report. It is Wednesday night, May 20th. Thank you all for listening. This was the NXT Takeover that, we all poo-pooed over. We all talked about how, well, specifically I talked about how the show had very little build. Some of the matches had less than 30 seconds of televised build. You had matches where the results up and down the card were predictable. However, you ended up with a really, really great show, capped off by an amazing near 5-star match. And the show ended with a huge angle. And we'll get to all that here in just a few minutes here over the next, 20 minutes or so. Again, I want to thank you all for listening. We're going to kick things off right at the start of the show, starting with Eric Young with Sanity versus Roderick Strong. Sanity's music played for Eric Young to come out, and at the end of the day, I'm still convinced they thought the women's match was first, because not to say that, they may not like Eric Young or they not like Sanity, but they reacted way too strongly for an Eric Young introduction, in my opinion. Of course, I could be wrong, but who knows? Roderick Strong ran in to kick off the match through the crowd. He ran in through the crowd, posting Killian Dane and giving Alexander Wolf a backbreaker on the dasher boards. Strong shined on Young and had the advantage until Dane ran him over on the outside of the ring, which began one of two ridiculous Tom Phillips quotes. The first being that the referee didn't see this. It was obvious live and even more painfully obvious on the replay that the referee was watching the whole thing unfold and suddenly realized he was watching it, and maybe 2 seconds before Killian Dane actually ran over Strong, the referee looked down and, quote-unquote, did not see Killian Dane running through Roderick Strong. If wrestling was real, I'm curious as to what we're supposed to believe the referee thought happened. Because if you watch it, the referee's watching Killian Dane run, he looks away, and then when he looks back, Killian Dane is standing over the fallen bodies of Roderick Strong. It's possible that, if the referee was quick on his feet, he may have thought that, Roderick Strong fell over, he collapsed, and was in need of emergency medical attention, and Killian Dane, being the amazing human being that he is, ran over and immediately performed on-the-spot emergency resuscitation to help his fellow athlete out. Yeah, that sounds like complete BS to me too, folks. So with that said, this still was a good match despite that. Tom Phillips' second stupid comment. Well, this was too much a stupid comment as much as a brain fart. He claimed that Strong was attacked before NXT Takeover Orlando and hadn't been seen in weeks after the show. For those who have a better memory than Tom Phillips, you all know that was no way Jose that got attacked before NXT Takeover Orlando, and still hasn't been seen since that show. Strong took over with a drop kick when Young jumped off the middle rope, but Young gave him the wheelbarrow neckbreaker outside the ring for actually a near count out. Strong made his comeback, kicking Dane off the apron. He threw Young into Alexander Wolf, who was trying to interfere. Young climbed to the top rope, but he took a nasty plunge onto his fellow men as Strong hit him with a jumping knee. And then Strong picked up what I think was a surprising win after a third jumping knee and a releasing suplex into a backbreaker. Not that it's surprising because, they've been pushing strong for weeks and they had that long video package, but it's become almost the running joke that, heels always win on NXT, especially in these openers, even in situations where the story is built up for the babyface to win. WWE United Kingdom Championship. Jim Ross got his own entrance and a standing ovation as he joined the broadcast table for this bout. Let's just say something here. The Cruiserweight title has been around since September. And they came off the Cruiserweight Classic and the Cruiserweight Classic finale, which was TJ Perkins and Grand Metalik, in a fantastic match. And then they immediately all went to Raw. Now, when they all went to Raw, they had the opportunity to immediately go back to TJ Perkins and Grand Metalik and have an amazing show-stopping match to really set up that Cruiserweight division for life. And instead, no offense to the guy, they put in Brian Kendrick, and the division has been dying a slow death since. Even with Neville, it's still a long, big, huge, giant drop from where it was just 6 months ago. I say that to tell you that in one night, in 20 minutes, the United Kingdom title has officially leapfrogged the Cruiserweight title, leapfrogged a lot of titles actually, and now officially means more than so many titles on the roster. This was a fantastic, show-stealing, near 5-star. If you want to say 5 stars, go ahead. This was an amazing match between two people who, let's face facts, there's a lot of WWE fans who I guarantee do not know who Tyler Bate or Pete Dunne is. I work with a gentleman who's a huge WWE fan. However, to him, WWE is the only wrestling. And so he's not going to sit here and watch Ring of Honor. He's not going to sit here and watch all these great indies online. However, he texted me during this match to ask me who the hell these people having this outstanding match were. This match, like, if you've never heard of Tyler Bate or Pete Dunne, or if you've never seen them wrestle, or have a very thought about British wrestling and the whole UK division, go watch this match. If you do not have the WWE Network, they have 5 billion ways to get a free month right now, and even if you've expired all 5 billion ways to get a free month, if you go out and pay $9.99 for the WWE Network, I personally guarantee you will find that this match between Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne for the UK title was well worth that $9.99 by itself. You can skip Backlash, you can skip Extreme Rules, you can skip Money in the Bank, and every other show that happens between now and your 30 days, and never watch the network again for the entire month, and you will feel like you got your money's worth watching this match alone. I hope I didn't just oversell it, but I'm serious. Go buy the network and watch this match. This match took two... I mean, I always say they're relatively unknown, because if you watch NXT and you watch the UK title tournament and you watch UK special, you know who they are, you know their moves, you know their characters. But again, if you've never seen them, you need to watch this match. Okay, now that I'm done ordering you what to do, let's talk about this match. The crowd, early on in the match, there was a nice cross-section of fans, about half of which chanting for Dunne, about half of which chanting for Bate. Dunne's fans seemed to stick around longer and chant later into the match. However, by the end of the match, there were no Bate fans and Dunne fans. There were fans of both men. By the end, they were chanting UK and Fight Forever. Dunn started early, working the joints of Tyler's fingers. He tried to stomp on them, but Bate moved out of the way. However, Bate was then dropped on the ring apron, which, by the way, is the hardest part of the ring, with an X-Plex. Back in the ring, Dunn went for another X-Plex, but Bate landed on his feet and hit a standing shooting star press to the back of Dunn, which led to a very close near fall. And if that was the finish, the fans would have been happy. It would have been a good match, but that wasn't it. Bate went for a second standing shooting star press, but got caught in a triangle choke. From the triangle, Dunn was throwing punches and elbows at Bate's head, but instead of tapping, Bate lifted him up and dropped him with the one-arm power bomb. Bate pulled out, I don't know if it's the longest, but undoubtedly the fastest airplane spin I've ever seen in my life. And by the time he dropped Dunn, and I want to believe this is more sheer coincidence, he just happened to fall on top of Dunn, who had collapsed, but only got a 2 count. Bate came off the middle rope, but got caught with a forearm, laid out. Dunn hit an X-Plex that he maneuvered into a sit-out powerbomb. Everyone thought it was the finish. Everyone jumped to their feet. Everyone screamed 1. Everyone screamed 2. And then everyone screamed, "Oh!" as Tyler Bate kicked out. The crowd then exploded as the 2 wrestlers got to their feet while swinging wildly away at each other's face. We then had a series of moves where one of them would hit the other one, they would fall into the ropes, bounce off of the ropes, hit the other one, who would then fall into the ropes, bounce off them, and hit one of their own. It culminated with Bate looking like he was doing a suicide dive into the ropes, bouncing off of them and hitting a kick. Dunn went for the bitter end, but Bate turned it into a DDT. Bate then hit the Kota Ibushi Asai moonsault to the floor. He threw Dunn into the ring and hit the corkscrew 450 splash for the 1, the 2, and a Dunn kick out again. Bate goes for a pescado, but Dunn stepped aside and threw him into the pretty black mats outside the ring. He threw Bate back in the ring and became the second WWE United Kingdom champion by hitting the bitter end and picking up the win. Take everything I just said as I previewed this match and copy it and paste it right here. Go watch this match. This is not hyperbole. I am not overselling it. Go watch this match. Okay? You can watch some highlights, okay? But you need to watch the entire match. It goes about 15 minutes. If you can't get 15 minutes to one of the best matches of the year, at least, in my opinion, the best WWE match so far this year, just keep going. You're not going to enjoy anything WWE's going to put on all year long if you can't spend 15 minutes of your life and watch this match. Now, as for the answer to a trivia question, who is the poor bastard that had to follow that match? Well, there were 3 of them. Asuka, Ruby Riott, and Nikki Cross for the NXT Women's title. The story of this match is Asuka's confidence has almost completely turned into cockiness. Her moves, while just as crisp as before, were done almost with a sense of boredom. Early on, the fans were into Asuka and Ruby, and not so much for Nikki outside of our entrance, but they really got into Cross when she caught Asuka in the ring apron and waylaid the champ with forearms. They tried a different 3-way spot where Nikki had laid out Ruby, but Asuka nailed a missile drop kick on Cross, and in the meanwhile landed in a splash on Ruby. Asuka was outside the ring and Cross dove off the apron, but got caught with a nice-looking knee to the face. Later on, Ruby went for a top rope leg drop, but Asuka rolled out of the way into a perfect position to slap on the Asuka lock. Ruby would have had to tap, but Cross broke it up. Nikki laid out Ruby on the ring apron, which again is the hardest part of the ring. And they did the normal triple threat spot where each lady would be laid out outside of the ring, and the other two would square off. I want to point out, nobody, this was a very good match, but nobody believed that either Nikki or Ruby would win, but they still enjoyed what I said was a good match. And the finish was, this was a weird one. Nikki and Ruby were on the mat in a submission hold, and Asuka came running up and did a low running drop kick to Ruby, who smashed her head into Nikki's head, and Asuka covered them both at the same time to pick up the win. The injured Ember Moon, during the match, sitting up in the stands, watching everything go on. Good match. Again, it's not as good as those old NXT women's matches, but I think a lot of that to this day still has to do with the fact that nobody thought that a WWE women's match could be as good as those ended up being. They had a commercial for Rocket League, which is the thing that sponsors every pay-per-view for the next 6 months. And I guess it's a soccer game where instead of players, you have cars. However, in the commercial, it's a normal soccer game. There's a bunch of 12-year-olds playing soccer, and somebody goes to kick and try to score, and this 12-year-old girl dives, and if you believe the commercial, she looks like she dove headfirst into an oncoming vehicle that was saving the goal. Now, I'm sure the intent was she became the car, but for that, the car was in the wrong direction, or she jumped in the wrong direction, whichever way you look at it. And it looked like she dove headfirst to her death. The Velveteen Dream, Patrick Clark, re-debuts this Wednesday night. And then it was main event time. Bobby Roode versus Hideo Itami for the NXT Championship. Now, before you start scratching your head, yes, there's still a ladder match to go. And we find out why they put this match where they did, don't we? But we had Bobby Roode versus Hideo Itami. Interesting to note that they showed the original angle where Itami was injured, where you were led to believe that Kevin Owens did it, even though that part of the story has long since been forgotten by everybody other than me. And also interesting to note, that actually happened, and this was not mentioned by anybody, and I didn't even know this until I read This Day in History on the Figure 4 Weekly website 2 years ago today. Yes, folks, it was 2 years ago today. So Bobby Roode continued his quest to break the all-time record for the longest walk to the ring in wrestling history, as tonight's entrance clocked in at a tremendous 4 minutes, 25 seconds. The finish saw Itami go for a second go to sleep. Roode blocked it on his way down, hit 2 glorious DDTs back-to-back to retain the title in an excellent title match that exceeded expectations. As for the rest of the match, Itami teased the go to sleep in the first 30 seconds of the match, but Roode got out of it. Itami dropped Roode early and then dropped several knees on his. Itami lowered his knee pad, which led to Roode covering up. So Itami just back kicked him in the mouth. Roode took over with a buff blockbuster and concentrated on Itami's shoulder, including several elbows to the shoulder, which was not picked up by the announcers, not even Nigel. And the whole point was Roode spent the whole match working on the shoulder, and then he ended up injuring his own shoulder as Tom moved out of the way and Roode went shoulder first into the octagonal ring post. And both men go for their respective finishers, one way or the other, neither would hit it. We saw Rude outside the ring try to send Tommy into the steps, but they reversed that. Hideo then went for a running dropkick, but Rude moved, and Hideo went crashing through the steps, possibly injuring his ankle. Back in the ring, Tommy got the best of the yay boo spot, but he injured himself on a running corner dropkick. Rude then hit his first glorious DDT, but Tommy kicked out. Tommy hit the go to sleep, but Rude fell out of the ring, which seems to happen in every single Bobby Roode title match. Anyone else ever notice that? And Tommy slapped Rude like Rude owed him money, and that led to the finish, which, like I said earlier, was 2 glorious DDTs for the win. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Cassius Ohno, and Pat Patterson were all shown sitting at ringside. The main event, Authors of Pain versus DIY in a ladder match for the NXT Tag Team titles. Not mentioned on TV, but I kept thinking about Gargano tweeting about how he was at No Mercy 99 for the first tag team ladder match with the Hardys and Edge and Christian, and he wanted this to live up to that memory. Unfortunately, it won't be remembered that well. This was a very good ladder match, but if it is remembered, it's going to be remembered for 2 moments, one of which Gargano may never remember, at least I hope he doesn't remember, and one for the angle at the end. Early in the match, Ciampa and Gargano brought a giant ladder from up the aisle, which led to Gargano doing a suicide dive through the ladder and onto the AOP. They went for a Hardy Boys poetry in motion, but Gargano was caught and thrown on top of Ciampa, who was kneeling down. Throughout the match, Akam and Razor teased being too big to climb the ladders, which is ridiculous, and Big Show has been in several matches in the past without problems because they just had a giant reinforced 6,000-pound ladder to help them out there. We had several creative climbing spots here. We had a moment where the Authors of Pain would pick up a ladder and Ciampa began running up it. At one point, the Authors went for a super collider, but they were lifted so high in the air that Gargano and Ciampa were almost reaching up to get the belts. The Authors of Pain set up 2 long ladder bridges from the ring apron to the dasher board, but DIY used a series of knees to lay the champs across them. Now, let me set this up for you. It was set up in the entranceway with the 2 ladders on either side of the aisle, the 2 ladder bridges, and then they had a giant ladder set up in between the 2 going up. So Ciampa and Gargano both got to play Jeff Hardy as they climbed up either side of the ladder and came off with double splashes off the top. Ciampa hit his on the money, but Gargano and Akam bounced off the ladder without it breaking clean. But trust me, they more than made up for that one. DIY, at a couple occasions, had this match won, but the first time it seemed to be over, Paul Ellering ran in to stop Gargano from climbing. Gargano super kicked Ellering, which caused the Authors of Pain to freak out briefly, because without Paul Ellering, how are they going to survive? How are they going to wrestle without their spiritual advisor here? It didn't last long, as Ellering spent the rest of the match pretty much propped up against the dasher board. We then got the nastiest shot I've seen in a very, very long time. Do you remember a few weeks ago at Payback when Sheamus kicked Jeff Hardy full force in the face, causing Jeff Hardy to lose a tooth? Do ya? Well, tonight we saw something that, in my mind, is going to be much, much more painful, as instead, the Authors of Pain had a ladder. They were holding it long ways, or, with the far end of the ladder, the part that says do not stand on. pointed directly at Tommaso Ciampa's face. Johnny Gargano, showing himself to be a great friend and great buddy and great tag team partner, pushed Ciampa out of the way, and the Authors of Pain slammed this ladder right into Gargano's face. There is a chance Gargano does not remember the rest of this match, and, for the future friendship of DIY, it might be an interesting angle if he doesn't remember what happened the rest of the way. Nigel McGuinness flipped out on commentary, as you can imagine. Razor began climbing the ladder, but Ciampa was able to rip him off of the ladder with a German suplex, which caused him to fall into a ladder propped up in the corner, exploding it on impact. Akam went to do the Terry Funk airplane spin with the ladder, but he got super kicked to his knees, and DIY hit their double-team knee strikes to him, because yes, Gargano, after taking a ladder full brunt in the face, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, he never put his hands up and took the ladder right in his face. How we didn't have a Joey Mercury moment, I'll never know. So anyway, with the Authors of Pain down, DIY set up a ladder. They climbed up. They had the belts. They were ready to become two-time champions, and suddenly the ladder was no longer there. The Authors of Pain were up. They removed the ladder, and they hit first a pair of power bombs on Gargano and Ciampa, and then the Super Collider, and much to the fans' dismay, the Authors of Pain are still your reigning, defending, undisputed NXT Tag Team Champions of the world. And that was a violent, violent match. There's no rest for the wicked. The Chicago crowd gave DIY a standing ovation after the match, chanting DIY. They showed a bunch of replays, and they put up the end-of-screen graphic, much like when Kevin Owens debuted once upon a time at NXT Takeover, Our Evolution, back in December of 2014, which is still the worst name, by the way, for NXT Takeover shows. They put up the copyright 2017 World Wrestling Entertainment graphic that we've all seen. We all know what it looks like. It signifies the end of the show. And at that moment, Tommaso Ciampa took his best friend and slammed him face first into the screen, into the set. And with the fans and the announcers having no idea what the hell just happened, Ciampa then gave several running knees to the face and head of his best friend, his tag team championship partner, and left him lying. The fans who were chanting Psycho Killer just minutes earlier in reverence of this man booed their heads off as Ciampa hit a lifting knee strike to send Gargano on top of the announcer's platform. Ciampa then dragged Gargano to the top of the announce table and then teased delivering a move through the announce table. However, it's enough. He had Gargano hoisted up over his shoulders and gave him the white noise off of the announce table, off of the stage, and through some production tables set up off to the side. The crowd were simultaneously cheering for this amazing thing they just saw and booing their heads off at Tommaso Ciampa for having the audacity to break up this amazing team that they had. So that was NXT TakeOver Chicago, a show that, like I said, you definitely need to watch one match. Check out this angle at the end of the show, and honestly, you won't be disappointed if you watch the entire show. So that does it for Chicago. Tomorrow night is Backlash, which, barring a miracle, will not be at the same level of this show, but we'll see. Thank you all for listening. and we'll talk to you again tomorrow night.